I am a founder and president of a nonprofit organization called BOND, the Brotherhood Organization of a New Destiny. For 28 years, we've been rebuilding the family by rebuilding the man. I am a conservative, Republican, Christian, and I love the great white hope.
Let me start with the Reverend. Is America great again?
Absolutely. It's becoming great again every day, thanks to the president. Number one, he is dealing with the illegal alien and the border situation like no one else that I'm familiar with, right? And to me, that's a big deal. And that's one of the reasons he's there, because he made a promise that he would put a big, beautiful wall around the borders. He would deport all of the illegal aliens, and he's working on doing that, so that's good. And we're bringing more money home now from our jobs. We get more on the tax cuts. And we would not have gotten that with the Democrats at all. If anything, we would be putting out. They'll be taking more from us. Another good thing, Black Americans, more Black people are working today as a result of the president than any other time. So he's definitely making America great again. There's still more work to do, but so far he's keeping his promise. And I don't know when the last time we had a president that kept his promise. We about have politicians who keep their promises, and this man is doing that. I call him the great white hope because of the excellent job he's doing. And one other quick thing he's doing, he is exposing the children of the lie. And the children of the lie, this is liberal media, the Democratic Party, the RINO Republicans, and the Never Trumpers. He is exposing them, and they are having a hissy fit, and I'm having a hoot nanny of a time. So yes, America's been made great again.
So right before we head to Kaya, I just want to introduce Sonnie, who's here.
I'm a big fan of Sonnie.
So Sonnie, just tell us a little bit about yourself, and then we'll keep on going.
Okay, my name is Sonnie Johnson. I host a Sirius XM show called Sonnie's Corner every single Saturday. I also release a podcast every single Wednesday. Did she say that? It's a little raunchier. It is not for the faint of heart. If you don't like bad words, you shouldn't go to it. But if you like intellectual thought, it's stocked full of it. I like to focus on economics and how you can bring that into minority communities, especially the Black community, and that's my focus. So sorry for being late. They sent me to a different room, and I was sitting there waiting, and then I realized the problem. So it wasn't colored people time, I can promise you that.
Sonnie, over to you.
I will say this. I'm probably the least pro-Trumpish person sitting up here right now, but I'm definitely the most Trump-ish like. You know what I'm saying? So that's where we're gonna go. And so I want to do this, but I want to say this because this happened before Trump. So you can understand it's not about this presidency, it's actually about our country. So back when the IRS scandal broke and all of the Tea Party groups were going before Congress to tell their stories, one of the ladies made a very impassionate plea about it, and she was like, I want to conserve the America that I grew up in. And she was very, very, very passionate about that. But to me, I was like, oh, you done lost your mind. Because I didn't grow up in the version of America that she was talking about. My version of America was drugs and crime and poverty. That was my version of America. I don't want to conserve that. I don't think that that is something that we should be looking for keeping in our country and for people to actually grow up and experience. So when we start talking about, is America great? And you have a certain population saying, wait a minute, hold up, it's not that great for us, they're not lying. There are some really bad hellholes in this country. And the people that live in those areas, they are not happy-go-lucky about their situation. It is not something that they want to conserve. It is not something that they want to pass on to their children, nor is it a legacy that they want to leave for their cities. So when Trump did come out and he put out his slogan where he said, make America great again, I was like, okay, now let's add the caveat. Like, we gotta add a caveat to that. For some places in this country, you're gonna have to make it great for the first time. Because you're talking about 4, 5, 6 generations that have never saw it great. Because they have been under Democratic progressive boot that entire time. So if you were born and you are 60 years old, and you have lived in a progressive Democrat city your entire life, if that person tells you America isn't great, they're not talking about the entirety of the country. They're talking about their life and what they have experienced in this country. And when you tell them that they are wrong, what you're saying is that the system that they grew up in is okay. And that it is acceptable, and that you don't mind conservative for them because your slice of America was different and it was better. So that's all you look at. So that's my caveat. And like I said, it was before Trump. It was always my principle, because for 60, 70 years in some places, there has only been Democratic control. I believe that the progressive policies are death, destruction, and poverty. So please tell me what in those areas is worth conserving. So I would just be very cautious when you're talking to some of these people and they're telling you, no, it's not really, I'm not talking about the pundits or the talking heads or the Democratic politicians. The everyday Americans, when they are telling you maybe it's not always great, I bet you if you ask a follow-up question, they'll start telling you about the number of people that die in their community. They'll start telling you about the poverty level. They'll start telling you about the trash and the school system that is failing them, their inability to get a job. They'll start telling you why they think that America is not so great. And that should be a conversation that we are willing to have instead of just sticking onto a slogan and a talking point.
Okay. So just before we go on, if people want to have a response to anything that any of the panelists say, just
I agree with her.
Yeah, just let me know and jump in. I know Reverend wants to say something, and then Kaya, if you want to as well.
I just want to respond to what she said. There is a segment in this country who happen to be black that have lost control of their own lives. And that doesn't mean that America is not great. America has always been great. I grew up on a plantation down in Alabama. I grew up under the Jim Crow laws. I remember for color science only, and the boys would have to be taken out of school twice a year to plant the crop and to bring it in. And even growing up under the Jim Crow laws, we were taught that America was great even then. We were never, they were not putting the country down, and we didn't have the poverty and the dope heads and the thugs in the communities, because back in those days, black folks got married, they were decent people, they lived upright, they respected one another, and they made it clear to us that Jim Crow law doesn't mean that all white people are bad. It's the government, and it was the Democratic Party at that time too, but it's the government. And so the black situation is not going to get better until black people stop blaming and stop feeling like victims, and the men rise up and become men again and get married, make babies, provide, start businesses, keep the crime out of their community. So there is a segment here, but it's not because America hasn't always been great. They just gave up their lives and went for the government programs.
You're not going to get the black vote. And I'm being honest with you.
Because we're telling the truth?
Yes, excuse me.
We're telling the truth.
This is why you're not. I was born to a crackhead and a barely literate veteran, okay? My mother, still a crackhead to this day, she believes fully that it is her body and her right to do what she wants to do with her body, and you can tell her no different. My father, he just passed, but he worked his entire life. Never played victim, never cried, got up every single day and went to work. If you follow anything that I do, I don't think anybody in this room would say I play victim. But I know history, and I know what Democrats have done and the way that they have laced these programs throughout our community to cause detriment to our community. Now, if me pointing that out makes me a victim, then how do we have a conversation about it? How do we change it if the simple fact that I talk about it makes me a victim?
But
If I want to talk about
redlining,
if I want to talk about redlining, you're going to tell me that, oh, well, that was back then, it doesn't matter. The communities are still district in those red lines. How could it not matter?
Well, we are getting the black votes. 30% of black people are supporting the president. So it is changing.
Name a city.
And the president is not
Name a
pretending
city.
that it's something else.
Name
But
a
30%
city.
of black
That's
people
gonna
voting,
change from Democrat.
and the numbers will go up.
I'll just point out in California, I mean, it's not the same situation, but there's a very interesting race right now in the 39th district, which is where Ed Royce is retiring. And that's one of the majority-minority districts. That is to say, it's a Republican district, but the traditional white Republican voter is actually in the minority, and Republicans continue to win there. That's one of the districts that Nancy Pelosi has targeted because Hillary Clinton got more votes there in 2016. But right now, the Republican was a woman named Young Kim, who was a state assembly member from one of those communities. She's now in the lead. So it's interesting. It shows Republicans can win in areas that are majority-minority with the right policies and the right people.
Another quick example of that, Omar is taking out the Wicked Witch of the West, Maxine Waters.
That's Omar Navarro running against Maxine Waters. If you see Maxine Waters in a restaurant, buy her a drink. All right, so let's get to the next question. So Sonnie brought up an interesting point, which is that some of the things that are happening, let's say particularly the bad things that may be still happening in some places, didn't necessarily start with President Trump. The argument you hear a lot is that the good things didn't start with President Trump either. That Obama, in fact, about a month ago, got up at University of Illinois and gave a speech saying, well, I'm glad he's taking credit for my economy, something to that effect. So, is that a question in this election? Before we get to the election consequences, is this Trump's doing? Is this something we can give Trump credit for if America is going well?
Without a doubt, 100%, it's the president is doing this. Obama is a liar. Obama has always been a liar, and Obama will continue to be a liar. He lied about the health care. If you like your doctor, you keep your doctor. If you like your health care plan, you can keep it. All lies. And so I'm not surprised that Obama is trying to take credit for this, because he has nothing else to do but lie. He wants to take control of the government again, and so he's out there lying. But people know, most people know, it's amazing, know that it's because of President Trump, right? It's amazing that I run into some of my family members who happen to be black, and and they're listening to MSNBC, CNN, and others, and they're believing this lie that Obama has something to do with the economy getting better. And I'm like, are you like out of your mind? You know, there's some things you just don't believe, you know what I'm saying? But they're falling for that lie, but absolutely Obama's lying, and President Trump get 100% credit for what is happening, the good that's happening right now.
Well, yeah, Hillary Clinton is not president, so yes, I think that alone right there is a great start. To touch on what Sonnie was talking about, she is correct, and both of you are correct. You both have a very strong narrative that's correct in this country. I don't think that either one we have to say one is right and one is wrong. We need to figure out how do we help inspire these communities to get up, vote, and change. That is the only way we're going to see a change. It is up to us. It's up to every single person to help get the truth out there. And I think wholeheartedly this president is tearing all of these cloaks that's just cloaked. No, you don't know this. This isn't really happening. It is happening. It is very real. And I wholeheartedly think the reason why we have so many African Americans speaking up, speaking out, and getting involved is because of this president.
I mean, I just want to kind of chime in too. I don't want anybody to dismiss Sonnie's experience. It's genuine. Republicans need to do a much better job, and we need to crack the code, because we need to convince folks in the minority community that we can do better, that we can do better for them, and we should do better for them. So,
What would you do for them?
yeah, so you know, Pastor, I think there's lots of things that we can do, right? We got to convince them to vote for Republicans, so you get better majorities in the House and Senate, so we can pass reforms that are actually meaningful, right?
I know that you're right in that the Democrats control them, but it's the black people's fault if they have families, if fathers and mothers got married, and then they set that example for their children, taught their children to be independent, then it will work. There's nothing else to offer black people.
Pastor, I get it, but my point is we got to go in there and convince folks the Republicans are going to do better. It's our job. It's our job to win the policy argument.
But the president ain't doing that.
No, but it starts with faith.
Republicans need to do
There
it.
needs to be
Republicans need to do a
faith in
better
these
job than just
cities.
provide lip service. And not that you or Sonnie or others aren't doing it, but we need as a party, right? And I've said this before, as a party, to reach out to, you know, America at some point in the future is going to have a lot more minorities than majority. Whites will not be a majority in America at some point in the future. And the Republican Party is just looking to hang on to that. At some point in the future, the Republican Party is going to cease to exist, right? The African American community, people of faith. They go to church, right? They believe the same things that Republicans believe in: God, country, family, the Latino community, right? We need to do a better job of messaging that so they know we're on the same team, right? We should not put messages to divide those folks and give them reasons not to come to the party. We should talk about the things that unite us, right? Lots of things in the African American and Latino community that Republicans believe in wholeheartedly. We need to do a much better job of letting them know they're welcome. So I agree with both your perspectives. Look, you're both honestly held you hold these perspectives which are pretty strongly felt. So I want to talk about that. Now the economy, pivoting off to something a little bit more. Look, this is clearly Trump's economy. The cutting regulations, the things that everybody doesn't see, that doesn't make the front page of the newspapers, that this administration did, really freed up the American economy and gave the folks in industry and business, they gave them the confidence to invest money in America, to bring capital back from overseas tax cuts. So the economy was feebly coming back in the Obama administration, but came back with a giant lightning bolt as soon as the president was sworn in.
Didn't Obama say that the economy was gone forever? Something kind of statement like that.
Yeah, the jobs were never coming back. What is he going to do? Maybe his magic wand?
Well, so I will tell you again.
Abracadabra.
As I will tell you again, in the great Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, President Obama once famously said in San Francisco at a fundraiser, he said, "The jobs are gone in Pennsylvania. That's why people cling to guns, God, and religion."
All right, Sonnie, back to the question of, is Trump responsible for the good things if the good things are happening?
Okay, first I'll go back to 60 years, 60 plus years in most places. If you think progressivism is death, poverty, and destruction, and conservatism is the answer, why can't conservatism beat progressivism for 60 years? Think about what we've done in that 60 years. Think about our debt in that 60 years. Think about the downgrading of our institutions in that 60 years. How much damage has been wreaked in that 60 years? And if all along you know the answer to that is conservatism, then why do you let it keep going because it's not happening in your backyard? So you can keep listening to people that say, it's no use in talking to them, they're worthless, they're this, they're that, they don't matter anymore. But the problem with that is the disease stays in your country. As the disease stays in your country, it spreads. So it might it might start in the black community, but it spreads to college campuses. The crack might start in the black community, but opioids start spreading in other directions. The point is, if you don't remove the disease, the entire country catches the sickness. And that's where we are. Every major city in this country is under, most of them, majority of them, vast majority of the major epicenters in this country are all under progressive control. And from those epicenters, the disease spreads out. So I just keep that in mind. 60 years, look at the destruction in your country when you don't get the disease out.
All right,
One of the reasons that it lasted for 60 years is because we have RINO Republicans who are cowards, and they were not, even the presidents in the past been cowardly presidents, and they believed just like the Democrats. Even with the illegal alien situation, they want the illegals to come in because they support big businesses, so they would never plan, they had no plan to shut the borders down. And so now things are changing because we have an alpha male in the White House, a real man who loved the country and who has courage. So things are changing, and they're changing pretty fast too. But if we had real Republicans, it would have been over for the Democrats a long time ago.
Why isn't it playing into the elections more? If we have a successful president, successful country, why is it difficult for Republicans to get that message to voters?
I believe that it is playing I believe that the people will go and vote for the Republicans. A lot of people are afraid to say out loud that they're voting for the Republicans because they're afraid of the attacks that conservative Republicans get. And then now you have the Democrats and others really calling out for violence against folks who support this president. A lot of people just kind of quiet about it, as they did during the presidential election. They didn't say anything because they were afraid to, but they went into the voting booth and they voted for the president. And this time around, they are voting for the president. And so I believe that we're going to do quite well. And the last quick point, especially after what happened to Judge Kavanaugh, a lot of folks, moderates and conservative, moderate Democrats and others, they saw that anger, that hatred, and that meanness that came from the media and the Democratic Party to a point that they were willing to destroy the judge, his wife, and his daughters. And so I think because of that, they're quiet about it, but come November, they will vote for the president.
All right, Sonnie?
Okay, I want to do this. I want to give you an example of what I mean when I say, why I keep on harping on the 60 years. Okay, so let me take a Republican talking point. So what is our talking point? Our talking point is, if you graduate high school, if you blah, 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 then you have a chance to make it in America, right? That's our talking point. Pull yourself up by your bootstraps. Go to school, finish school, everything will be good. What if you go to a failing school? What if you go to a school where the teachers push you out without teaching you anything? Do our talking points still work at that point? So it's not about necessarily conditioning, because we're telling them, you got everything you need. Actually, no, they don't. They are in failing schools that do not educate them. How are they supposed to come out and compete with the best of the best? Are we actually being fair and living up to our own standard of what we say? When we just accept that and just look at people and say, oh, well, you'll figure it out on your own. I mean, we figured it out. No, you went to a really good school. Kind of had some help with that, right? You literally have schools in Atlanta where the teachers are going to jail because they fudge test scores.
What is it that you want? No one knows what you want.
I'm having a conversation and I'm making a point.
What is it that you want?
How long have you been doing this?
Want?
You've been doing this for quite a while. If you had the answer, I wouldn't be doing this now. I would be out living my life.
I have the answer.
Then where was it? Because you should have showed up when I was in, elementary school, but you didn't. So now I have to be here picking up the slack. I was finishing my comment.
I want to know what you want.
I was finishing my comment.
More than what you want.
Right.
What do you think we should do, Sonnie?
Yeah.
What do you think we should do?
About
the problem.
No, the whole problem is, what I am saying is, we have the answer. But our talking points, if you go back to what he said about the weak-kneed Republicans, I totally agree with that. But we've had those Republicans for 60 years. Their talking points for 60 years. Their modus of operation for 60 years.
But now we
so
have
it's
a
not
president.
just the Democrats. Yes, but that, you cannot act like that didn't have a residual effect and that nothing came from that. Because Reagan passed amnesty, but he didn't close the border. Are we seeing an effect from that? Just because it happened a long time ago, are we still seeing an effect from it? Are we still trying to address that problem now? And yes, that's A-okay, but when I want to do it, it's not. So no, this is the point. Because I believe 100% that conservatism is the answer. I believe that we are not selling our product to the people who need it the most. So when we just blanket tell them, if you go to this failing school and come out, you should have everything you need to succeed. No. We should actually be saying, let's go with school choice. We should actually be pushing that as our narrative and not just saying going through what already exists is going to get you a different outcome. That is the definition of insanity. But if we're going to push school choice to fix these problems, let's push school choice to fix these problems. In the 1970s, when they drove manufacturing out of America, they also drove the trades out of high schools. So now kids cannot go to high school and come out with a basic degree that gives them a trade. That doesn't mean they have to go to college and come out $50,000 in debt. But they told us that those programs were no good because we were training people to work mediocre jobs. No, those are the jobs that are constantly in demand. And if you have one of those jobs, an actual trade, then you can make a living for yourself. Can we go to fighting to put those back in the schools? So if you have a kid that's maybe not the most liberally, artistically brilliant person, they can still have a solid future in one of the trades.
Sonnie, I don't want to...
So we have a lot of things that we could be doing that are surrounded by conservatism, and just throwing our hands up and saying, well, what do you want from us, cannot be a solution to this problem.
All right, so we've got the signal from the stage hand. Thank you, Sonnie. Let's go to the questions. Try to keep them brief. We'll try to keep the responses brief. Please, very quickly.
Honestly, I don't know what you guys stand for anymore. I don't, because to me, President Trump seems kind of separate from a lot of issues that I normally associate with conservatism. So if I could ask you, literally, please, would you please define for me what you stand for now? If you don't, and it's an honest question. I'm
We
really
stand
asking.
for freedom. We stand for independent, independentiality, if that's such a word. We stand for work. We stand for America. We stand for Christian values. Well, I do. We stand for Christian values. We stand for family. We stand for the country.
Pro-life, pro-life.
Can I ask you this? What do you think should be done about health care?
We should open it up so that citizens can cross the state lines and county lines and buy insurance from whomever they want. And when it's open like that, the market will speak for itself because insurance prices will go down and more people will be able to afford it.
All right, well, thank you very much. This is obviously the beginning of a much broader conversation. I want to thank our panelists, thank the audience, and thank you, Politicon.
Then how did that equate to